Hi everyone, this is Cindy with InPulse Creatives. Welcome to our Close Encounter series, episode 4. Today we have really two amazing guests. We all the way from Taiwan and Australia. And of course, I'm here in Saudi Arabia and Jana is in Germany. So we're coming from 4 different time zones. This is the beauty of Zoom meetings, right? Like we would never think about doing this before. But welcome everyone. Hi Lily. Hi Tracy. Hi Jana.
Hi.
No, we were all just kind of chit-chatting about hair earlier. Like, you know, because it's for women and we were talking about pandemic hair and what it has done to us for the last year, about how our grays have kicked in. And, you know, we like to just turn to our other half and just say it's all your fault. At least that's what I say to my husband. It's like, because of you.
And the kids too.
And the kids, yes. Exactly. Exactly.
Kids, because pandemic husband.
Yeah.
That's it. So that makes a lot of fun.
Yes. Yeah. You know, it's putting the blame on someone else. But it brings us back to sort of what we wanted to talk about today, because, you know, we have both Lily and Tracy to come and talk and just to give us a little bit of tips and tools and strategies on how we can, you know, realistically deal with our mental well-being and how to deal with, you know, and how we can really do self-care. Because I think this last year has been such, you know, challenging is already being overused, but I think it's you know, it's not easy on varying, you know, on so many different degrees of how we have dealt with this last year, from the artist, from the entire industry, but also as a biggest fear of how the world has been dealing with it. And, you know, we talk about our industry all the time, but at the end of the day, you know, we still go home and we still go home to families and friends. And that's part of a bigger world, right? That's part of a bigger sphere. And I think, you know, to have Lily come on board, who is a licensed, you know, counselor and therapist, I think to have her share with us some tips and tools, I think it would be so helpful. But, you know, Jana and I have been talking about this topic for so long, and I think whatever discussion we talk about, it still comes back to, you know, mental well-being and self-care, really. And so I'll maybe let Tracy and Lily sort of introduce themselves a little bit, and we can, you know, get the conversation and chit-chat going on started. Tracy, why don't you tell us about what you're doing down in Australia, down under?
Yeah, sure. So hello, everyone. I'm Tracy, and I'm based in Melbourne on the traditional lands of the Bunurong and the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. So I want to pay my respects to the elders past, present, and emerging, and anyone listening today from this community or anywhere across the world as well. So we have just entered another lockdown, hopefully a short one, and yeah, it's an interesting time to say the least. So my role here is that I'm the head of program of the Arts Wellbeing Collective, which is a prevention program specifically designed for promoting positive mental health in the performing arts industry. So we kind of really look at all of the challenges that go with working in this amazing and challenging and unique industry, and look at sort of what impact it might have on people's mental health, and how we can look at how we work and the way that we work together, and some of the things that we do, and how we look after ourselves and look after each other, and how we can just do that in a way that is great and is good for people. I think it's really interesting that this program that we run actually started in 2017. So we were set up pre-COVID, which I'm really thankful for. I think it would have been really challenging if we were trying to set it up during COVID. So we're very thankful that we were already set up and already had some things in place. But COVID has obviously just kind of magnified everything. You know, this was already a challenging industry to work in, and it was already having an impact on people's mental health and well-being. And then you kind of layer in a pandemic that's like drastically affected our industry, and it's just been a really intense, gosh, I can't believe we can say years. Do we say years, or are we still saying months? Maybe we still say months. It feels better to say months.
Right, it sounds less scarier to say it in months than years, right?
Yeah. We'll go months.
There you go. Thank you.
Yeah, that's us.
Thank you. And Lily?
Hi everyone. I'm from Taiwan, and I got my degree in the United States, marriage and family therapist, and I studied in Seattle, but I graduated and I came back to Taiwan immediately and got my license in Taiwan as a mental health counselor. So I've worked in the hospital before to help with the depressed clients, and then also in colleges with the college students, with helping me with their adjustment problems, relationship problems, what to do when I graduate problems, and then a lot of kids problems. So and then now I am a stay-home mom. I write articles with relationships and share my ideas how to get people stick together rather than get divorced. It's a big topic, and I'm sure it's universal over the world. So that's why I like this topic, and I thought when I was deciding what to do in the future, I chose marriage and family therapist because I thought I can do it everywhere, because my business, I can do it in North America, and I can also do it in Taiwan, because the business is everywhere. Everybody will have relationship problems. And thank you, Cindy, for inviting me to this panel to share during this pandemic time, because Taiwan just got into this crisis like 2 weeks ago, and we are getting into serious lockdown because like hundreds of cases are bursting out. So a lot of problems are getting out. So I think it's a good chance to share with you guys how to cope with stress and how to deal with the relationship around you.
Yeah.
So thank you.
No, thank you.
I thank you both, and I just want to jump on that because we had a little pre-conversation, and actually, great starting point. I mean, okay. In Germany, just to say that quickly, we're kind of getting out of a lockdown right now, so we are kind of heading a little bit back to normal. I was at a restaurant for the very first time in 7 months yesterday. Ooh. Yeah, it was so, I was like sitting there and I was like, oh my God, this is like 7 months. And the thing was to eat food that I didn't make, it was just like, and then I saw people around me and I was like, yeah, I lost some track with the fashion kind of, because I saw them, wearing stuff and I was like, when did that happen? Because, it's 7 months. And I was sitting there with my boyfriend and we were just chatting. And I was like, it's so weird because it feels the same, but it's totally different. And it's just, actually celebrating sitting in a restaurant, which was so normal before. I mean, we hardly ever cook normally. So we do restaurant quite a lot. So the thing is, we discussed that yesterday because we talked about today, and the one word that has been used, I don't know, a million times is, oh, I'm so depressed. Yes. Oh, this is so depressing. And we talked about, and for me, I'm trying not to use this word so much because to be really, really honest, I kind of know what it means, of course, but I don't know the real meaning. And I think for me, like yesterday evening, I said to my boyfriend, I was like, I'm sorry because I feel very vulnerable at the moment. And it's weird because it's the end. I'm going through it, so I should be happy, but I feel even more vulnerable than a few weeks ago. maybe because I lose my tension, I lose, getting through this. I'm kind of relaxed. And then I said, it feels, I don't know if that is, if a depression kind of feels the same, where you can't control your feelings anymore. So that would be my first question, actually.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
That's a very good connection, Jana, because actually in clinically, I've seen a lot of depression people. They come into the room and they tell me, like you said, when the event was going on, they wouldn't feel as much, like you said, depressed or feelings, because they are going through the period. So they are fighting through it and they are not caring about their emotions. But when the things are getting to an end, like you said, well, for example, when this is coming to an end and your emotions started to come out, and all of a sudden you have all these emotions that you haven't been dealing with before, and now they're like, haha, I'm here. And so that's why you feel, oh, I'm so overwhelmed, I'm so frustrated, I'm so lost, I've lost all this feelings, and upsetting or anger and all this emotions just comes out to you. And like you said, people just define it as depression or I'm depressed. Yes, like a whole bundle is called depressed, but actually it's not. It's a lot of things in here.
Very interesting. Yeah, because we were talking about this, and I said, I think we overuse the word too much. Like every little thing, you're just like, oh, I'm feeling depressed. Oh, this is so depressing. But, I think they're really, I think we just, especially at a time like this, I think we all need to be even more careful about how we use this word, right? Especially in our creative industry. It is so easy to feel that. And are we really in that state? Or is it a state where some people just feel like this is a way to make myself more recognized or be more, like how people want to victimize themselves so that they can be noticed.
Right.
It's so interesting.
I think that's a good point. Yes. A lot of people, especially our client, I see a lot of people, they like to get attention. For depression is a way to get attention around me, because I'm depressed. So I cannot do this, I cannot do that, and everybody has to do things for me. So in a way, they have more power over other people. So
and you also draw a line in conversations, because if I come into a room and say, oh, by the way, I'm depressed, if there's someone sitting in the room saying, oh, actually, today was the day where I really wanted to talk to her about something which is uncomfortable, they will not do that. So it's also putting me in a constant comfort zone, because no one would attack me, like even if it's not attacking, but, would discuss something a bit more difficult with me saying, oh, by the way, I'm depressed. So it creates this kind of weirdo safe space.
Right.
And I think, but just saying to be used, and I think it's been maybe used consciously and unconsciously as well, but it puts you away, like it keeps stuff away from you. For sure. Like Tracy,
it's a really interesting. Sorry.
No, I was going to say, like, from your perspective.
I think it's okay, Cindy.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
Sorry. I think I've got like a tiny lag, so you go.
No, I was going to say, this is from big, and I mean, how does this transpire in the artistic world, like with artists, like from your program? How have you seen that, that catalyst or that relationship of how artists deal with this topic?
Yeah. It's so interesting. I love your point, Jana, about like not quite knowing then how to engage with this person. So if kind of this is what we're sort of dealing with, because you go, I want to help, I want to be useful, and I want, we all want each other to be well as well. Like I don't think we're kind of going, oh, toughen up, you'll be fine. It's like, oh, what can I do to kind of make this better for you? But I think what's been really interesting through COVID is that it kind of feels like we've increased all this talk of mental health.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's kind of been so constant of like, you know, bad for mental health, good for mental health, do this for mental health. What about people's mental health? And we kind of go, wait, are we all talking about the same thing here? Like, have we actually kind of established what this means for us or what these phrases are? Because I think at the same time, if we're not building people's capability to have a good conversation and to know what to do, then you do kind of go, oh, I'm just sort of stuck. You know, we sort of haven't quite matched all of the awareness raising with building knowledge and skills of what to do for yourself as well as for other people. And I think that's why, you know, this conversation around self-care and support is so critical, because people genuinely are like, I hear you, this is so important, and we so want to be doing this well, and we want to be looking after each other, we want to be looking after ourselves. Now what?
Exactly.
So I think it's a really interesting thing of like, okay, what are we all talking about? What do we mean? What's the difference between being like, oh, lockdown's so depressing, to I think I'm experiencing depression? Like, what's that, you know, what's on that whole spectrum? And then what do we need for each point of that spectrum? When, you know, what should we be accessing? Who should we be talking to? I think that's a really interesting thing that people are starting to kind of go, oh, hang on, there's stuff we should be doing as well as just talking about this. I think that's, I mean, hopefully that's a silver lining. Like, hopefully people, you know, are kind of keen to see action in this space now that we are sort of talking about it more, which is really awesome.
Yeah. I mean, which is why we're here today, right? Because we, you know, it's like this whole thing, we kept hearing about it the last year, but no one's given us this, you know, specific tools or specific tips of what we can do. And, you know, Jana and I, we keep saying our conversations, you know, we do these conversations because we're not trying to save the world. Like, we're not capable of doing that, but we're hoping that at least through these conversations and chats, you know, we're able to at least let audiences walk away with a little bit of tips or something that'll spark their mind and says, oh, this could be useful. Maybe I should give this a try. You know, and I think, and this is why we're so thrilled to have the both of you, because you guys, you have started a program since 2017, and Lily comes from really just from the psychotherapy of like, okay, really give us some tips of what we can do. And I think, like you were saying, right, we keep talking about, it's almost like people know that health and exercising, like we've had years of knowing it's not just about, okay, you need to exercise and eat well, but there's been so many talks and papers and documents to say, well, what you should eat and everything. But I don't think in the biggest fear, there really is people is helping us break it down for us, you know, like, well, what does it mean to do self-care? What does it mean, you know, like, what can we do in our daily lives that we can apply not just to our work, but also to our personal, like, you know, like we said, I was telling Lily previously, I said, you know, we work in an industry that is not a 9-to-5 job. You know, half the time we're working, you know, we're either stuck at the theaters or we're on the road or we're in meetings or we're at conferences. And even when it's off hours, our brain is not off hours. So, you know, we know that, oh, you need to get good sleep and you need to be in bed and get, like, I was like, in our world, I'm, you know, even if it's not our business, the fact that you're a mom, like, how do you get 8 hours of sleep a day as a mom? And so now you add our work to it. How do you even get that? You know, like, I'm lucky.
No.
Crazy.
I can get 5 hours. So, you know, but like I said, like you said, I think that identification, right? Of like, how do you identify what can we actually do? And I'd be curious to share with us, you know, like, what are some of this, you know, what are some of the actual initiatives with this program that you've been doing, Tracy? And maybe you can share with us a little bit of some of the programs within this whole initiative.
Yeah, sure thing. I love that one about sleep, because one of our like very first big pieces of work was around touring. Because that was always the thing, right? Is you go, get your 8 hours of sleep and eat this many vegetables and drink this much water and do this much exercise. And you're like, when I'm on a tour bus and I'm in a hotel room that's like totally different every single night, and I've got maybe a hotel kitchen if I'm lucky, like how are these things even possible? And that led to one of our biggest pieces of work, which was called Tour Well, which was actually about kind of answering those questions of going, well, we spoke with a specialist sleep psychologist and went, wow, if I finish work at 11 p.m. and I've got a matinee call, what should I do? When should I go to bed? And it was so interesting because I think like we get so used to some of the messaging that is designed for that 9 to 5 role, that it can be really hard to translate into our, into our context. So like when you hear, go to bed at a reasonable hour, if you finish work at 11 p.m., you're like, oh my God, I've got to be asleep. I've got to go to bed. Mm-hmm. And it's like, yeah, but if you finished work at 5 p.m., you wouldn't be aiming to be in bed by 6 p.m. Like you'd go, I got to wind down. I've got to, got to get in the mood for sleep. Like I've got to chill out. I've got to have some downtime. I've got to have some transition time. But it's hard to kind of think that way when you're like, I've got to go to sleep. I've got to go to sleep.
Yeah. No, but it's also like, like getting, like being an artist, for example, you come off stage. So you stand in front of an audience, you play music, you dance, whatever you do, and then click. No, it's not going to happen. It's even where, when you come home from an office day, it's much easier. But I remember I had a relationship 20 years ago with someone who was not an artist, and I was an artist. And I was like, and I was on tour and I was so tired. And I remember he said to me one day, but why don't you go to sleep at 12 if you're so tired? And I was like, because you cannot walk off stage and sleep. It's not working. Exactly like you say, you need this time in between, and you need to calm down, and to calm down from this hype. It's like a hype. You can't just sit there, have a tea and say, oh, now I'm going to calm down and watch a Netflix series and that's it. It's not going to work.
Because it's a high. Like when you're on stage, it's an adrenaline high.
Yeah, exactly. And that's and he was like, yeah, but I can go home from my work and just, watch a little bit of TV and do some sports. And I was like, yeah, but your job is different than mine. And I'm not saying it's better or worse. I'm just saying different. And that's when that relationship was over quite quickly, because I realized it was, because I realized I was like, I can't, what can I say? I can't argue. I can't explain that this is not how I work. And this it actually added stress onto my, mental health thing. So I was like, yeah, let's maybe you do yours, I do mine, whatever. But it's like you said, and it's really, really difficult. So you have to come up with like little techniques. I mean, for me, it was always sports. Like I was a dancer, so I'm used to physical. But this physical, I get rid of stuff being physical. But that was good for me.
It's kind of like that. Yeah, it's kind of when we talk about D-roll, like kind of actually how you get out of character. Even if your character is like a stage manager, is on, right? Yeah. Like you have, you are on that whole time. And then you have to go and be a human, and you kind of have to go, okay, how do I get out of this character? How do I get out of being a stage manager person so that you can kind of have the rest of your life and have that meaningful transition? One of the things that I remember hearing about self-care through this work that I just loved, and it was kind of a bit of an aha moment, which was that in this industry, we tend to think of self-care as kind of luxurious. Like you tend to kind of go, like, I'll get to self-care like when I've got time, or like at the end of tour, or like once festival season's done, like it's kind of what I'll get to, or when you're absolutely forced to. So when you're like totally burn out, or when you just like crash and burn. And there was this whole like reframe of like self-care is entirely preventative. So it's actually to like stop you like getting to that point.
Yes.
So like actually doing it at the start and doing it more regularly stops you needing that burnout and that stress kind of self-care. And it was such a flip to be like, oh yeah, that's the obvious. But then it just like never occurred to me to be like, oh yeah, if I do all this stuff like now when I'm like not on tour or like pre-tour or like even like in lockdown, like if this is when I can actually kind of focus a bit on my, you know, better eating and a bit of exercise and stuff, so that when we come out of lockdown and I do have to kind of be more on and be like teaching in person, like all this kind of stuff for the program, that I'm in a good place too. Like it's so weird, and you go, oh, that's so simple, why didn't I think of that earlier?
Right.
I want to echo that. I want to echo Tracy's thing. In psychotherapy, we have one technique called love cup. So everyone should have a love cup. Oh, I just happen to have my water around me. So just we all have a container of some sort of our love. So when you wake up in the morning, you pour some to your kids because you need to make breakfast, and then you need to send your husband out, you need to do laundry, you need to wash the dishes. So you pour and pour and pour, and then your water is down, you know, almost out. So then the love cup, you only know how much you have your water. Other people won't know how much water you have unless you tell them or unless you are aware of that. So a lot of times we expect other people to know that, oh, my love cup is empty. But no, people won't know until you tell, or until you're consciously aware of your love cup. So when I learned this concept, I constantly remind me, oh, what status am I today? Am I empty? Am I full? What do I need to do to make myself more full? So I think it echoes with what Tracy was saying, you know, to not like when you're burned out or when you are done with your tour and then you give yourself, then you are already like it's too late. So you will be seeing doctors or you will be taking medications by then, right? So when we constantly aware of our mental state and we constantly give ourselves some time to nourish, to sit back and relax, and then pour more water in our cup, then I think our mental state won't be as devastated or as.
I love this idea. I mean, both like what Tracy and really what you said. It's fun, but I have a question. From my, like when I listen, it kind of requires at least a little bit of self-reflection, I would say. Right. So, you know, you need to be able to, you know, sit there and be like, yes, I have a love cup and I do consider. So, and I think like from my point of view, a lot of people don't do that. They don't self-reflect. No. They can reflect everything around them easily. Like they could say, like they could tell me, oh, that person did this and this, and give a complete analysis of other people's behavior or a situation, or analyze a situation. But when it comes to themselves, they're like completely lost. It's like it's not really happening. And I think that's, and for artists as well. I mean, it's difficult because they are constantly a lot of time, I mean, they have to create work. So that's why they have to, you know, go inside and create. But at the same time, it's always about the outcome. It's about the presentation. It's about how do I look? How do I talk? What do I say? And somehow, how do we get people to understand that they have to reflect themselves? And it also like critically and critic is not bad. You know, it's not being, if you find something, like you said, you know, if I wake up in the morning and I realize, oh, my love cup is down to here, I could feel bad about it, which doesn't really make any sense. Or I could just say, oh, that's how it is. And I just have to fill it up. And I think a lot of people are scared of being down here and feeling bad about it. And that's why they refuse to self-reflect.
Right.
Right. I wonder too, it's so, I think something that we often forget about with that notion of self-care is self. So we sort of go, like, you know, when you read stuff and it's like 10 tips to be well, and it'll be like, go for a walk in a rainforest. And it's just like, okay, cool. That's great. Like, that's great if that works for you. And if you really like rainforests. But I remember like it was something that was really cool. But like something that really worked for me was actually kind of going, where do I get my energy from?
Yeah.
And I remember like at an old workplace, when I was feeling stressed out, I used to go for a walk. We were near this beautiful park and I would go for a walk. And I would just be so tired by the end of the day. And I was like, what is going on? Like, why isn't this replenishing me? And then I was kind of like, maybe because you're a massive extrovert. And like all your energy comes from people. Like, don't go off by yourself. You're actually draining your energy. And it was kind of about like that flip for me was going, okay, when you're tired, go have lunch with a colleague, like give someone a call, like go and chat to the guys like setting up to bumping in the show, like go and be around people. And that was kind of what was refilling that cup for me. So I think it's also like sort of noticing where you get your energy, like when you kind of finish a day and be like, oh my God, that was a really good day. Like what was kind of in place. So like having that sort of notion of like, what did I do? Did I have lunch? Did I drink lots of water? Did I chat to people? Did I play with my dog? Like what are all those sort of things? I think like just, those, if we can almost reframing it in that notion of energy, I found really, really helpful as well.
Totally. Good point. And Lily, I think just, adding to Jana, like, so, it takes really self-awareness. So, I mean, what can you suggest to people just to, how do we check in with ourselves, right? Like, I think it's really is about checking in with ourselves. Like for me, like how do you give tips to someone and say, well, maybe, how do you check in? Like, how do you remind, how should we remind ourselves to check in with ourselves? Because honestly, sometimes you just wake up and then you go through the day. And then by the time you're done, you're like, oh, why is it already 10:30 and I am dead tired? And you just forgot what happened, right? Like, I think, it would be so cool if there's a way, like, I don't know, like some taser or something like that's implemented in our body.
Yes, it is an interesting question because I've never asked myself how I check in with myself. It's like, for me, it's already automatic because I do it all the time when I started to know this notion. So I think for the audience who begins to learn this idea, the first thing, like Tracy said, is to understand who you are. So like Tracy, she said she's an extrovert, like a extreme extrovert. So she likes interacting with people. So that gives her energy. And for me, I'm half. So I'm half extrovert and half introvert. So when I'm socializing with people and I'm done, like for example, today's meeting will energize me and then I will have to go back to my little cave and, watch my drama or read my books to kind of nourish my introvert part. So first thing is to understand who you are first, and then to think about, to really explore what will, like you said, what will give you this nourishing feeling. Like, if that's draining you, then probably that's not a good thing to do. If people keep saying running is good, but I don't like exercising, and if running will drain, will give my love cup more. Like last time, Jana was saying meditation will probably drain her down.
The monkey in the head.
I know.
Yes,
exactly.
So that might probably not be a good way to give her, to fill her love cup up. So and also practicing. So keep practicing. We talk about this to evaluate yourself. Am I, is my state being okay today? And each day evaluate yourself and see if there's improvement on this love cup exercise. So I don't know if
By the way, I just wanted to say, because you mentioned meditation, I started to read this book I mentioned last time. And there was one sentence I loved, because I think it's a guy, I'm not sure, but whoever wrote that book said, actually there is a myth going around that like you start meditating, you have to stop your mind from thinking. And he said that's absolutely bullshit, because that's what your mind does. You are thinking. So you cannot stop that. That's a myth. And I was like, oh my God, and this was on page 2 or 3. And for me, this is like, I was like, okay, I can continue reading, because that's exactly my problem. I cannot stop my mind from thinking. I can try to put it, from there to there, but I cannot just stop. And I don't really even want to. It makes me, I don't know. I mean, if when you're in between awake and sleep, when you go, sometimes your mind goes off and you stop hearing voices and then they come back.
Yeah.
But still you have something going on in your head. And I love that he's so, I think it's a he, that the author is so down to earth about this. And for me, that was like, I was like, okay, now I can maybe find my way into meditation, because for me, it speaks to me. And that's something I think, like what you say, like running, I was not running. I started running a year ago, and just because there was nothing else I could do, all the studios were closed, everything. And my home is like, I can do yoga at home, but I cannot go to the dance studio, for example. So I started running. And I hated it until then. I was like, this is not me. I hate running. Why would I run? Why would I run from A to B, For me, it never made sense. I was like, you can run, and I sit down, have a coffee, wait for you. That would be my job, just to sit there. But as you said, all of a sudden, I figured out it is good for me. And even if it's just maybe I will stop after the pandemic. I don't know, who knows? But it's true. It's like finding what is good for you, and it needs some try. You have to try stuff. I mean, it's not that you go, I remember I did swimming once, and of course I bought 4 bathing suits and because I thought this is my new thing, and then I went to swimming one time and I thought, I hate it. That's boring. It's boring to just go, But
what happens to your 4 bathing suits?
Yes, I have 4. So if anyone needs a bathing suit, I have 4 I'm not using, because I love going to the sea, to the ocean, but I'm not swimming. This is absolutely boring. It's like doing Pilates. It's good for my back, but I fall asleep because you don't move. You lie there, and then you can raise your hand a little bit at one point. I can't do this. But you have to try, I tried.
Yeah.
I thought, okay, I don't know.
Right. No, I think Lily and Tracy brought up such 2 important words. It's the nourishing and practicing, right? Yes. I think especially we forget. I think in general, people forget about nourishing ourselves. And I think there's also a lot of culture where there's certain roles you play in your life. Like you always have to care for others, and nourishing ourselves is always the last at the bottom of the list. And so this idea that you got to take care of everyone before yourself is very prominent in so many parts of the world. And so to even just say the word nourishing, it's like, well, what does that mean, right? And practicing, I think learning that it's, like my favorite phrase this last year is like, it's about progress and not perfection. And I have to keep telling myself that, because especially in our industry, we're constantly searching for that perfection, right? Whether it's from the artist side, whether it's making sure that everything has to be perfect so nothing goes wrong when that tour goes out on the road, right? So like, because we know those sometimes the perfection means sometimes it could be actually very critical to either the show or to the safety, even just the safety, right? If it's not accurate, if it's not perfect, safety is in play. So in our world, we're constantly doing this whole, it's like this cycle of work. This one is caring for this one. This one's caring for this one. This one is caring for this one. It's like this chain, right? This evolving chain, but no one thinks about themselves. Like we're like at the bottom. It's like, we don't nourish ourselves. We're trying to nourish other people.
No, it's true. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and this also, the perfection part, because we talked about this as well last time, is about setting goals that are reachable. I mean, if I would say, I'm just picking up that because I started running a year ago. So if I would go and apply for the New York Marathon, I would definitely not make it, because actually I did Google it yesterday, and I just saw that to just be able to enter is like completely out of my. Yeah, I mean, I think you have to run the whole thing in like 2 hours 50, and I was like, what the fuck? I mean, who's just the people?
It's so hard to get into.
It is.
My husband's
We're
actually
talking
doing it
on
next
panel.
year in
Oh
theory.
my gosh.
Yeah, if like fingers crossed if we're allowed like out of Australia and stuff. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I will so be there. I was there once. I saw it once, like 10 years ago, and I saw them running, and they're so fast. People are just like boom, and I was like, oh my god! But are you like this the whole time? Because this is fast. But the thing is, if I would make that my goal, I would be depressed again. And, because it's not possible for me to reach that goal without stressing myself to a point where it becomes either unhealthy in a physical way, or I just don't ever get there. So this is my goal, and I just end up here, and I would feel bad about it. And that's the thing with perfection, to find the goals you can actually reach. Not to make them too easy, but not to make them too... How is that? I mean, that is also... I feel sometimes it's difficult.
It
for
is.
me.
Right.
I think something that I was actually talking to my partner about this today. So we have this beautiful festival in Melbourne that's new, and it's called Rising Festival. And it was cancelled last year because of COVID. And this year they opened on Wednesday, and our lockdown came into effect on Thursday. And they cancelled about 130 shows. And everyone's been cancelling shows, right? And it's horrible. As we know, it's devastating when we're cancelling stuff. And we were talking about this and going, oh, that's so tough for them, right? Like, that's so tough. Like, they just opened and all this stuff, and their amazing artistic director put out this beautiful statement about, how proud they were of the resilience of the team and all this stuff. And it's like, oh, this is so lovely. And then I was talking to my husband about it today, and he just said everything that was in their control was so wonderful, and COVID is just out of their control. Mm-hmm. And it was like, yeah, when the goals are all around the things that are in our control. So like that might be running, a particular pace that's good, that's a little bit of a stretch, but it's good, it's good for you. That doesn't mean that you might be in the Olympics next year or this year or whenever they are. But that's the goal that's within your control, is just getting a little bit better at running, or, delivering this piece as well as you can, or whatever that might be. And I just went, as soon as it's the kind of part that you're in control of, that's so empowering. Mm-hmm. And then if COVID cancels it, it's like, well, that's totally out of my control. That sucks, but we're well prepared. Everything that we've been able to do has been done well. Like, they did open on Wednesday. It was amazing. Like, the shows that went up, everyone loved them. It coincided with the moon, the amazing red moon. Like, unbelievable, right?
Oh my God,
so you go, all of that, like, so beautiful. And yeah, I just thought that's such a lovely frame of going, if the bits that are in your control and in your influence, you can do really well.
Right.
That's probably where to place all those kind of goals. I don't know, Lily, what do you think of that?
Yes. I was writing down with my notes, and it just coincides with what you were saying. My ex-boss, he was a psychiatrist, and he always said this to his client. There's 3 things you can identify. One is God's problem, and the second one is other people's problem. And the third one is your own problem. So when you started to worry about things, first identify whose problem is this. If it's God's problem or it's other people's problem, then there's nothing that you can do much. If you constantly worry, it's just wasting your time. But the only thing you can do is your own problem. You can solve it. You can do things about it. So, is your husband also a psychotherapist, Tracy?
Maybe he feels like it sometimes.
Yeah.
He better be one. Right now he is.
He is wise in this spectrum, huh?
Yeah. I'll tell him that. No, I won't tell him.
You'll have endless advices now at the end of the day.
Yes. Because
just what I'm after.
Yes, a lot of the clients that we're seeing is they worry too much about the things that they can't control, like, COVID or earthquake or anything. Like, what if tomorrow happens and blah, blah, blah. And, or what would people think about me when I'm not perfect? The thing is, you can't control how people think about you. You can't control how people, if they like you or not. So all you can do is you can work on yourself, right? So that's what I think this idea sits with me, and it really benefits.
It's very good. I have to say, I love that. I'm still am, but I was crazy scared of flying. And I remember it happened first when I was a child, not a young child. The first 10, 12 years I was fine. And then all of a sudden, boom, I was like, the thing is, it's, you give the control away. There's a pilot, you don't. And then I don't know, on one flight to China, I think it was a long flight, a stewardess came, she said, oh, maybe it helps for you to see the pilot, to meet the pilot, and to see that he's a great guy, and he was a great guy. The thing was, it didn't help at all. I walked in, I loved to see all these little thingies. Yeah. And it was totally interesting. I went back to my parents. My mom was like, and are you feeling better? And I was like, no, I don't, because I'm still not flying the fucking airplane. This is the thing. But it clicked in my head. I thought, okay, the only way to feel better would be to fly an airplane, which is not possible because I have no idea how to fly an airplane, and it would not help anyone. Not me, not everyone else, if I would start. And then I thought, okay, but that's what both of you said. It was completely, I had to give everything out of my control. You go in there, I decide to take a flight. And from that moment on, I just, trust in technique, in pilots and everything. And for me, this was like absolutely impossible. But at the same time, I thought, okay, but why do I worry about this then? I don't know, it took me years and years and years to kind of, get rid of this fear. But for me, it's like you said, it was interesting to realize I can't pretend knowing that a pilot is flying the airplane helps my problem. It doesn't. I have to fly the plane. So now I'm facing another problem, which is, I can do an education, become a pilot and fly that thing in about 20 years from... But that's not getting me anywhere right now. And I have to go back from China at one point as well, So I can't stay there for 20 years and make my pilot license. So,
right. But I think that's,
interesting point. And my question is like, but sometimes even though you have to do it that way, it's hard to find, I don't know, to know that, I think is the first big step. But then how do you accept not being in control?
Exactly. Oh my God. And we're really an industry about control, right? Yeah. But even in our life, like, I think everyone has a bit of that. I mean, I think of myself as, my husband thinks I'm a control freak. I need to control everything, like, I mean, I don't always think I am, but he apparently thinks I am. And so, like, even knowing that, like, how do you just, do you remind yourself it's going to be okay? Or even the artist, right? Like the artist at some point, we got to tell them, you got to let it go, and let it go because you've done all you can, and don't think about what the audiences are going to like, how they're going to respond to your piece. They're going to respond the way they respond. Yeah. And we also have to tell them that, but
you will have every response, everything. You will have everything from, I don't know, from love to hate, because that's the thing with the internet. Everyone can comment everything, and everyone has an opinion about everything. And even back to the point where you go like, oh, really? Who cares about your opinion? Well, the artists do most of the time. They do care. They read all the comments, and it makes them feel bad if someone says, oh, that's shitty work. That is like, what is he doing, or what is she doing? And how do you
let it go, right? Like it's like, how do we switch our brain to tell ourselves, don't be a control freak, just let it go. Let it go. Even if it's work or at home personally, like, it's that control where you just want to make sure things don't go out of array, when you just know certain things are out of your hands. Like, You can't
Okay.
change.
I would want to ask a question. So what would happen if you're not in control?
Oh, Cindy goes first.
Okay, so now we're in psychotherapy. This
Oh my
is gonna be too deep. Yeah,
Like,
but,
there you go.
yeah,
No, I go first. Wow.
no. I'm just saying, the audience could take home and then think about.
No, this is really good.
question.
I mean, what happens if I'm not in control? I freak out. Like I do. Like I just keep thinking like, okay, see then if something doesn't go according to how
what's the worst case scenario that you can imagine?
I don't think about the worst case scenario. I just think I'm not in control. Like, and then when I am not, or like when I want things done a certain way and it's not done my way, I just like this anxiousness just gnaw at me. And then it just like eats at me, right? Like it just eats at me or you create scenarios that you want to like, or with work, you have these certain scenarios you want to happen. And when it doesn't happen, you start to doubt.
But what's in your mind? What's the voice in your mind? Now I'm going deep.
So my mind starts running. It's like, why is this not happening this way? It should have happened this way. If it didn't like if it happened this way, this would not have happened. Like why? And then the why starts, I would start questioning myself. Right? Especially if it's like work related, you start self-doubting yourself. I think there's a lot of I think it splits into two, how I control things, between the personal and the professional. The professional, I start doubting myself why it didn't, if it didn't go this way because I wanted it that way, but it didn't. Then I start doubting my own ability or my capability. And I start thinking, well, maybe I should have done it this way or that way. But like, if it's like the personal, then I just start to, there's a moment of that period of like maybe half an hour where I want to have I want to have an outlash, right? And then that's like the personal stuff when things are not like, and then I'm ready to have like an outburst when it doesn't happen.
What's interesting? I would say I would totally agree with everything you just said, because it would be the same with me, but just listening. And that was actually nothing happens.
Yeah,
nothing happens because if it doesn't work, you will just find another solution for, oh shit, it doesn't, I would be the same. I would freak out. I would doubt everything. I would doubt myself. I would doubt my abilities, but at the same point, I have to realize it doesn't really matter. It doesn't change anything because it didn't work. So I will find another way. And one of the ways will work. And that's the only thing that happens. I mean, to be like a bit over the point, I'm not going to die. No one else is going to die.
Right.
The world is still, I'm not causing the Third World War or, and pandemic, funny, which was like, nothing happens.
Right. So fantastic, Cindy and Jana. You guys are giving great examples of the self-talk.
Be well accomplished. There you go.
Yes. This self-talk is actually controlling our emotions. Oh my God, I'm out of control. And then it gets your anxiety up and makes you angry, like outbursts, blah, blah, blah. But then when you think about it, it's not going to happen. Or if it happens, so what? And then so as psychotherapists, we will talk to clients. So, we do the process like I just did. And then, so nothing's going to happen. Or if it happens, we will have another solution for it. So then they're like, aha. So next time, through practice, maybe
it's interesting because I read this article. Do you remember? I don't know. Yeah, Robbie Williams, the singer, not the actress.
Yeah,
actress, not actor. So, and I mean, he was huge in the. I don't know when was that? Beginning of 2000,
the 90s.
I think.
No, the 90s.
90s. Yeah, take that. And exactly. And I mean, he had this big alcohol problem, and then drugs and everything. And I read it because I loved him back then. I mean, he was the bad guy, and he was like a great musician and great singer. And I read an article yesterday where he talked about that time, and he said it was about failure. His biggest fear was to fail his audience. And I mean, standing in Wembley is maybe different different than me sitting and, I mean, I'm not standing in front of hundreds and thousands of people, but when you break it down to it's always the same. It's about failure. It's being scared of failing. And then it's interesting because the reporters asked the same, said, but what if you fail? What if? I mean, what does failure mean actually? It means that you don't find the note, or that a song is not well performed, or that a video. So what? Well, then just do it again. Who cares? And everyone coming to your concert anyways, they will not even hear you going wrong at a certain, I mean, the pressure you put on yourself as an artist, is so big. And the audience will not even recognize you being a little bit offish on that day. I remember I came off stage so many times thinking, oh God, that was hideous, and that was shit. And then my parents came like, oh my God, we loved it. And I was like, how can you love that? That was like, I was trapped here. And they were like, no. So, it's like, it's failure and it's perspective. Like the self-perspective is completely off.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you probably never speak that way to any of your peers.
No.
So the things that you say to yourself, you would never say to people that you're working with.
Exactly.
No, because
so why are they possibly okay to say to yourself?
Yeah, because I'm friendly to those people, but I'm not friendly to myself, obviously.
Yeah. Right.
I have another question I want to ask, because I picked that up in our last conversation and I love it. And it's kind of, I think, Tracy, you said that, but it's the myth of suffering. The myth of that you have to suffer to create great art. And I really, really want to ask both of you again on your view on this, because I love that. And I thought about this really, really a lot, because I thought it's true. If you're really bad, you don't create. So it's a little bit like what we talked about in the beginning with using depression, or using the word depressed to create a certain picture about yourself. So, and I spoke to some musician friends of mine, and I asked them, what would you say? And some of them said, yeah, but it's true, Bon Jovi wrote this amazing song, Bed of Roses, because he suffered so much from, I don't know, was it Heather Locklear or whoever, walking out on him. And I was like, was he really suffering? Really, really? Or was it more like putting what he thought into great words and make a song out of it, which is great, fantastic, but it's not really suffering.
Right. And also adding to that question is also this idea culturally, right? A lot of places it's like, if you don't suffer, you're not a great, or you're not, you're
working hard enough.
Yeah, you're not working hard enough. Or if you don't suffer, and if you're not sleeping only 2 hours a day, you're not a great mom. Right? That kind of, I mean, that kind of suffering actually just evolve. It seeps in through all parts of our lives, all day, whether it's work or
if you have time to do manicure and do your hair, then how can you be a good mom, right?
Right, exactly.
Things like that.
Probably it's easier to be a good mom, I would say.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's so funny, isn't it? Because it's the same for everything, right? If I don't think anyone's ever been interviewed and you go, oh, so how do you do your best work? And people go, oh, when I'm really tired, when I'm really angry, frustrated and stressed out, that's where the magic happens. Literally no one says that. So
it would be so nice, right? I think it would be a revelation if actually some artists would have the courage to come out and say that.
I think everyone would just be like, really?
But it also sounds like we are laughing because it's not true. We have this game with the kids next door where we sometimes turn around everything. So you say the opposite. You don't say, oh, I love the summer, but you say, I hate the summer. I hate that the sun is coming out. Oh, and I love that I have to go to school tomorrow. It's funny because it turns everything around. But our reaction is the same. If someone would really sit down and say that, we would go, I mean, I would not take that seat. I would be like, yeah, no, you're talking Quatsch. In German, we say Quatsch. That's bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's the same with the suffering artist. I think it's that thing where it literally is a myth. It's this thing that we've got a lot of them. We've got that one. We've got like the tortured artist myth, the starving artist as well. So kind of that idea that if you're poor, you know,
Yes,
if you're
we
not
were
making
talking
any
about
money
that
for your
just then.
art,
Yeah.
that it's
Yeah.
and it's like
You have to dress
why do-
like a, you know, you're living on the streets, something.
Yes. Don't wash your hair.
Yeah.
Old socks. Old
Yeah,
t-shirts.
and you can literally like trace these back to when they first showed up in literature.
Yeah.
And it's like they did just come from like people writing funny poems.
What's
and
the
people, like,
torture
putting
one?
on shows.
What's the definition
So
of
torture, so that idea of like, oh, I just have to like live in this like eternal pain in order to be able to create. And it's like, maybe that's useful when you're writing a song. Like, I totally get that. Like when, you know, if you're writing from a particular character's point of view, like you do have to really kind of go, okay, what does this look like? But that's not a sustainable way to be an artist. Like,
So that's
you're not
method
gonna
acting,
like
no?
that on opening night
Method
or
acting.
at a press conference or like when you're learning your lines. Like, it's, you can go there for moments, but it's not sustainable as a whole thing.
Yeah.
No, but this is I mean, I took one method acting class in my life in New York just because I was curious, but this is method acting. But I mean, this is just, you put yourself into that position because you get shitloads of money for being a certain character, but you would never do that in your private life. I mean, why?
Well, it's so ironic because it's like we're like, isn't the whole point that we're acting?
Oh yeah.
Isn't like isn't that what we're really happy about, that someone can pretend to feel that and not be that? Like, isn't that what we get excited about?
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And yeah, it's like this notion, right? This perception of suffering. Like, you know, just we talk about dancers and jazz musicians. Like, why does jazz musicians always have to dress so poorly and dress like a bum in order for them to be considered a jazz musician? I work with a jazz artist, and her whole idea is to contradict that, you know, and she says she gets a lot of flack, you know, going out to gigs because she's coming always dressed, you know, like impeccably, like just gorgeously. And and her other bandmates, you know, like she needs to coach her other bandmates to dress appropriately. And then, you know, sometimes she has to have, like, they push back. They're like, well, why do I have to dress like this? And she's like, because so you don't look like a bum. And you look professional on stage.
Yeah, but it's true. It's
right.
I mean, honestly, I love that idea because it also, it first of all, I think it's more real for the art you do, because, you know, I mean, creating that complete image also says, subline, you have to add something to your art form, whatever it is, like jazz musician, to kind of sell it, which is not true. What happens is that you kind of make that small. You don't give that. I mean, I could do, that's the thing in New York or in America, like all the rappers. I mean, they look like, I mean, they, like, you know, they come in their Adidas pants and whatever they wear. And I remember I saw an interview with a guy from what's this big hotel, Plaza? And he said they, like 10 years ago, they could not allow people inside into the lobby wearing trainers.
Yeah, trainers.
The problem now is that everyone wearing trainers, these are the billionaires. These are the people who pay like the lofty. And he said that whole thing changed. Yes. But it became an image, you know, it's all about imaging. And sometimes I love when people break those rules. Like you're a musician. Like she's just like, I'm a jazz musician and I can still look fantastic and gorgeous and have my hair washed and go and have my nails done.
Yeah.
It's kind of it's about authenticity, isn't it? Like
yes.
That's, like people, that's what people respond to is when you're being authentic. So if your world is dressing in a particular way or looking a particular way or feeling or living in line with whatever your personal values are, when that's authentic, people feel that.
Yes.
You know, and I think that's where the magic happens. And so sometimes we get caught up in our own traditions. Like for such a creative industry, we kind of get caught up in what we should be or who we should be or what we should look like. And it's like, actually, you should be yourself. That's what we want to see. That's what makes it magical.
And it takes away the definition. I mean, a jazz musician is a jazz musician is a jazz musician. No matter, you can wear a red dress, you can wear pants, you can wear whatever, but just be a musician. Like, And then, exactly, like you said, be authentic. If you want to wear a dress, wear a dress, but it's not going to take anything away. Like the same what we talked about last time, like knowing your calendar, knowing how to read a contract, knowing how to apply to an email, you know, like whatever, you know, everything that is a bit more business related. It doesn't take away any artistic, you know, talent, or you're still an artist. You can be like, I said that, like, what's his name? Richter, the painter. He's a complete control freak. He does everything himself. That's what I heard. So he doesn't have anyone taking care of his calendar. And he's one of the greatest artists. I mean, that's another myth, you know, but I came across that so many times.
Yeah. But even in life, right? I think in general, there's always certain perception that if you don't suffer, you're not great at your role.
Yeah, well.
And certain cultures that's even more emphasized.
Yeah, it's true.
But even myself, sometimes I get into, and then the suffering then turns into guilt. Like if then it goes back again to that whole nourishing thing. Like even nourishing yourself becomes a guilt. Like, well, why should I be nourishing myself? I'm not, but then does it also then tie back to how people think of us? And so it's like this whole entire chain that just keeps connecting to each other, that becomes this vicious cycle that we can't get ourselves out of, And that's the question, is like, where do you start, right? Like, obviously sometimes, I think some people just, I also can't just, being aware and finding ways to tackle is so different. At least we're aware, right? But what about those that are not even aware, and how do you get them to be aware? And if they're aware, what can they do? Where do you start? Do you start off by telling yourself, don't care too much about what other people think? Or do you say, well, I should just be myself, but then, I'm still going to feel, I'm still going to think about what other people are going to think of me? Or, it's all of this stuff. And I don't know, maybe Lily will tell me it's again all the self-talk that you're like this battle in my brain, right?
I just want to add a question to this. Do you think, like both of you, Lily and Tracy, do you think that the pandemic added something to exactly what Cindy was just saying? Because obviously we all have more time. Well, if we want it or not, and for me, it's good. I do have more time. I never had that much time since I was 7 years old, I think. But at the same time, really, it's fun. And I love that, there are parts of me where I'm like, I don't want to go back to this crazy, 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 crazy life. I want to keep, but at the same time, I realize for myself, but also for people around me, having too much time also gives my head a bit too much time sometimes to go off on things, which sometimes it helps to not have that much time to think, to overthink stuff. So my question is, do you think that the pandemic kind of added something onto this kind of process where it becomes more difficult to, focus on something?
It's a huge, big question that you guys are asking. Do I have to solve this today? Well, I think to address what Cindy was saying, just to find the balance between, I also want to address that Jana and Cindy's characteristic is perfect to what you guys are doing, because, being a control freak is not at all bad. When you're doing something, so, demanding in an industry that's so, wants perfect in every way, I think this the characteristic you have, or the personality that you have, matches the industry that you guys are in. So I don't know which way comes first. Is it the industry makes your personality this way, or your personality fits into your industry? I don't know. So you can think about this, because for me, maybe I was a little bit like a counselor personality. Like, I like to listen to people. I like to help people, but I'm not as empathetic and reflecting as I was after I, get into studying more about psychotherapy and all about the theories. So it's like you probably your personality is like this, and then you get into the industry and it makes you more of a controlling personality, you know. So it's like you get into more of this personality. So I think it's the finding balance of who you are, because it varies in everyone. So for Cindy, you know, maybe you want to find a balance between how you feel comfortable, how you can be comfortable at home, but yet comfortable when you're outside doing your business with other people. Yeah, it's a big assignment to do, and then we all are working on it. I'm still working on mine too. So it's like, you know, talking to myself, is this good? Is this bad? And then like Jana was saying, all the COVID-19 crisis hits on us, and it makes us more, it's like a big issue that we have more time for ourselves. And what do? I don't like to be with myself, so I'm gonna be so freaked out, and you know, I cannot go out and meet friends. I have to be at home all the time, and all this thinking in my brain. So a lot of
I think also
self-talk.
career-wise, you know, I mean, especially for artists, it's not that they decided to take a year off. No one of us did. It was decided for us by something which we cannot control, but still it has a huge impact on our lives. I mean, working in the event and music and performing arts industry, artistically or whatever we do, for us, for all of us, it's like there's a huge stop. And it's not exact, like I said, you know, it's not that I decided I can just talk for myself, that I will take a year off and just, you know, walk up the mountain and be like, oh, whatever, bit Nietzsche-ish, you know, and say, oh, whatever happens, I'm just going to sit here. It was decided for me. So I have to deal with something which I didn't control. And at the same time, I think it's also, it makes me angry sometimes. And I can imagine artists, like, you know, we have this German artist, he's a rapper, and he had the biggest tour of his life last year. I mean, all of a sudden, all the kids were listening to him, and he had this tour, pandemic came, done. And, you know, kids, they forget about him, probably. Yes. So he will not, he just missed the peak of his career. He's still big, and he still have his tour and everything, but the one peak he missed. And it's not, it was out of his control. So I think there's a lot of anger and frustration, which is absolutely understandable, because it was it was not decided by anyone but a virus who's not even a person. You cannot even yell at a virus. I mean, I think, oh, I call this COVID, and then I start yelling at it. Maybe it makes me feel better. I don't know, but it's not something you can, it's just happening.
Right.
And I think that's another thing that is just, it does, what I think it changes a lot.
Of course it changes a lot. But when I think about, you know, bad things happen to us, or our life changes, loss of a loved one, or, you know, big stressing moments, usually we will reflect, or I would ask my client, reflecting back on the spirituality level, like what lesson is God, or is someone trying to teach you this time? What are we trying to learn this time?
Yeah, true.
Yeah, it's very true.
To maybe spend more time with our families, or reflecting, you know, we're constantly going outside, going touring around the world. Does that mean that we have to be more introverted and stay at home more, cooking more? Is that a lesson for us? What do you think, Tracy?
Yeah, absolutely. I think with all of this, to your earlier point, Cindy, about where do you start? I think you start with the questions, and it feels counterintuitive because you want to start with answers. but it's actually about kind of going, okay, what have I learned? What am I really grateful for? What's happened in this year that never would have happened without this experience? What have I realized about myself that I actually want to take forward? What do I care about, and what do I want to do next time? Right. And then I think there's kind of another questioning of like, what are some of the things that we've been telling ourselves that aren't that useful? So I think, Jana, that example of the rapper was so great, because we have had another myth that is the one shot. You get one shot. And you like, we have so much proof that that's so not true. So you go, maybe that tour was going to be terrible. And maybe actually the next one is like unbelievable. Yeah. So kind of questioning some of those things of like, oh, but this is, you know, like some of those things that we kind of take for granted a little bit, and going, well, is this okay that we've kind of
it actually adds another
said that these things are true? Like, what? Exactly.
Because it's the artist who didn't have a tour last year. So you could add this, like being a producer or being an agent. I could say this is another selling point.
Yeah.
You could be like, now we're going back to normal. I could call every festival and say, you could be the first festival to have the artist who canceled the tour last year. You know, that whole thing.
Yeah, capitalizing on people's goodwill and all the energy. And I think it's that thing of like, what questions can we ask ourselves that help us learn and move us forward? And then what questions can we be asking together that start to just poke at some of those assumptions and just start to go, well, is this really serving us? And where did this come from? And has this always been the way it's been? Because probably not. And I think when we start doing that, that's when we're really seeing some exciting stuff change. And letting yourself change as well. I think sometimes we get very hung up on like, oh, but I'm like this. And it's like, maybe, but that's just what you've been working as. It's maybe not what you were doing 5 years ago or 10 years ago, or what you'll be doing 5 or 10 years from now. What do you value? Because that's not going to change. Your work will change. And it'll be impacted by things like COVID, by touring schedules, by not getting a part, whatever, who cares? What are you bringing to it? What's that part of you that's unchanging, and what you value and care about, and how you show up in the world? And spending time nourishing that is, I think, probably one of the best things that we can do. And if we're all doing that together, like, oh man, this industry is just going to be so just thriving and amazing.
I mean, I think this whole series was born out of COVID, right? I started live streaming last year because I knew, you know, just like Jana was saying, we were forced to stop. Like, we took a whole year off, not because we wanted to, but because it was forced upon us. So now I'm getting into my problem solving mode and said, well, okay, I can't get my artist any engagements for the next 12 months. I mean, I saw that already back in like March of last year, right? And so I said, well, what can I do during this time? They still have to stay active. They still have to create. So I started live streaming, and I was forcing several of my artists. I said, you got to learn how to live stream, because this is what's going to happen next. And this is a way to keep you busy. And I said, I'm going to make you uncomfortable. And this is really what I said to all of them. I was not like, you know, I said, you got to be uncomfortable, because how we see it, this is a way to keep you busy. This is a way for you to create differently, because even as creators, you know, like you were saying, is there a different way to do things? Even for artists get into a pattern of creating certain things, you know, creating their work. Just like, I mean, human natures are creatures of habit. So we get into a certain habit regardless of what we do. And I thought this was the perfect time to do that, you know, and when we started this series, you know, myself and Jana, it was that whole idea of, well, let's talk about stuff, and how do we shift our brain of how we, you know, conversations to keep our frame of mind to shift in a way that we can look at it from a different angle and from a different perspective, you know? So it's, you know, I think it's, for me, that's how I've dealt with this last year, you know, and even still obviously knowing that, okay, well, you know, there's no income whatsoever the last year for pretty much, 99% of the industry. But how do we get past that? We're all in this together, and how do we find ways to get through this and to move forward, to be stronger and better?
Yeah, totally.
But then, that's like the professionally, but like personally, it's just like also, like, how do you go back to that? And then like, not, how do you get through that? Like dealing again, like I've been working from home, I've been working remotely for the last 15 years of my career. And I've been fortunate that I was able to do that. So when the pandemic hit, most people are just going crazy figuring out how to work from home. But I've always worked from home, so that was not hard for me. What was hard was like when my kid started being at home with virtual school. That was my challenge, is like, how do you find that balance? And that, like generally before the pandemic, I had the whole house to myself. I had my whole office to myself. Like that was, I know, from like, 7:30 until 3:00, that was my space. That was like my office, my time, like where it's very clear cut, the definition of my role during that, 6 hours, 7 hours. But now it's like constant reminder that there's a little one that needs my attention. And that sort of is like, how do you cope with that too, right? Like, how do you deal with these, that relationship, like going from home, like transitioning. Before there was still some sort of transition, but now there's no transition for all of us. Like you're at home, majority of them are stuck with their spouses, with their children, and sometimes it's even, like I'm sure in Taiwan, most of them are still living with their parents too. So you've got elders you have to deal with, your own spouse you have to deal with, your children you have to deal with. That could get really, really complex, mm-hmm. and try to deal with work. It's hard. How do you differentiate that, right? Like when you have that, again, it's that chain, that link, everything is all linked together. And how do you, even separate, like how do you separate that?
It's more difficult to find the time for yourself. And some people consider being, home alone. But for me, for me, traveling is really important. And I travel through my work, which thank God. And, who was first, me or the industry? I think, I don't know, we kind of, it's my, that's why I became what I am also, like work-wise. And I have to say, like, meeting my friends and actually traveling for me by now is even going to Munich, for example, where I was supposed to work a lot, or to Cologne, just another city in Germany. I don't even have to, I would love to go to Australia or to Taiwan, but it's not going to happen right now. But actually, I realized that this traveling input, different language, different smell, different perspective is a big time of being me, a me time. And I can even do this throughout my work or with friends, I don't have to be alone. I'm not even really good at traveling alone. I find it absolutely boring. Yeah. I do it sometimes, but I'm like, I have this romantic idea of myself sitting, in Florence and drinking a coffee, and it works for like 2 hours. And then I'm like, so who do I share this with now? And then I stop. That's why I love New York, because you always meet people, always, everywhere. Yeah. I love New York is the one city I love to travel on my own. I love that. But, so I think it's and I do find things in my new life, but I also have to say, I can't wait to get back to, get back onto traveling, for example. I think there is what you said, Tracy, we have to be able to change things and to shift things. But it is difficult when you're forced to stay at home, like in a lockdown, like we were there as well. And lockdown is, oh God, you can't, you're at home, done, period, straight, that's it. And, a friend of mine, she completely redecorated her whole house. And she put down, the papers off the wall, like bit by bit, and the only reason she did that was like, she said, I know it's going to take ages. This is going to go on forever. Painting is too quick. I need something that, absorbs my time. So she went like, and
I love
now
that, absorbing time.
Yeah.
Absorbing time.
She said, She needs that. She needs to do something. She needs to change something.
Yeah.
And she cannot leave her house.
Yeah.
So she said, yeah, well, that's it then. It's going to be my house.
Right. I mean, Lily, it's curious, like, you know, since you deal with relationships and family and you're also stuck at home, your 2 kids, how has that been going?
Well, when you guys are talking, like I have all these thoughts around me. Well, have you guys ever been to a travel? You know, of course I enjoy traveling a lot. I missed, you know, going on an airplane, going to Japan, going to Singapore, everywhere. Of course, I really resonate with that. But have you guys ever been to trips that are pretty bad? And, you know,
Yes.
Yes, like wrong people and wrong partner, and you know, just schedule was messed up, and all the trips wasn't as you expected, right? So the point is, who are you going with? You know, it is the person that you're with that's the most crucial, right? So the right person, I would think, is to begin with is ourselves. So you have to be the right person for you to begin with. And then, like Jana was saying, you know, your friend was redecorating her room, her house, and it's all doing, you know, trying to do stuff so you don't get too bored. But then you can just be with yourself, being, to be, and, you know, to, like we were talking about, to enjoy the here and now. At this moment, we are having this discussion in the panel, and how wonderful if there's no pandemic, we're not gonna be in here talking in the virtual live stream, or you know, talking in this discussion YouTube. So just going back to who you are, and do you enjoy yourself? Do you like being with yourself? What do you like? And if you don't like yourself, of course you would start to, you know, externalize, to wanting to go out and wanting to see what's better out there. But if you enjoy being with yourself, then I'm sure the relationship, like Cindy was saying, relationship with your husband, relationship with your kids. But the first relationship is with yourself. If you love yourself, if you like yourself, then people would feel that you value yourself. So when they're with you, they would also respect you and value the time that they're with you. But if you don't value yourself, people would feel that, and they would also reflect that to you. So it's all a matter of your relationship with yourself.
That's so true. That is such a good point. It is a relationship with ourselves. You know, we forget that. I think we forget that all the time. And so it's, thank you. No, I really, this was in such a it really is very enlightening conversation today. I mean, would you guys like to give some final thoughts and you know, final points that you want to share, Tracy and Lily?
Tracy?
Yeah, it's so, I mean, like, as you say, like, this wouldn't have happened without COVID. Like, we wouldn't have met. Like, this is so cool. I have places to stay when I do get to travel to each of your hometowns.
Yes.
Yes. And yeah, I think it's that thing of what have we seen and learned and realized and want to carry forward to make our world better. I think there has been, you know, such a global reckoning with so many issues that have always been there, but now we're kind of going, actually, are we cool with that anymore? Or do we actually, you know, come on, let's pull our socks up and get this sorted out. And I think the more that we can actually lean into that and learn and really kind of put that at the forefront of going, well, let's find out, you know, we're sort of often so busy doing and externalizing. I love that phrase, that like, when are we kind of, reflecting and learning and thinking and, you know, engaging in that sort of way. I think that's a really like if everyone just sort of, I think, COVID being that sort of pause for some people,
Right.
Has led to these discussions happening. And so I think if we can kind of make sure we're taking something really lovely and meaningful from that, which I think so many people are, and really kind of galvanizing some incredible change and positive change.
Yes.
So whether you can, and the best way to start that is kind of yourself.
Yeah.
It's sort of one of those little catchphrase things, but it is really true of, starting the change at home and thinking about yourself and how you can be better looking after yourself. Because if we're not well, and if you can't pour from an empty cup, you can't, if you run out of what's in that love cup, you can't give to the people that we care about and love. And so really kind of putting that first, I think, is such a valuable thing for us to think deeply about and act on. Yeah.
Thank you.
So, in Taiwan, it's been not raining for a couple months, and in Taichung, it's even more severe. So for a week, we have 2 days that we're not going to be able to use water. We are, literally just restrained for opening your faucet and to use water. So we have to save up for the water. And yesterday we started raining. So it's such a good news for us. And our kids are like, so happy with the rain. And we hope that they're not gonna restrain the water from us anymore. So we can use the water every day. So just a little thing that, even using water can be so thankful, because with 2 days, you're not being able to shower. It's terrible. So just to be grateful of your surroundings, and, we're still alive and living the moment for here and now. And just a reminder of everyone, just if the problem is not yours, if the problem is other people's, then don't sweat too much. Just take care of the things that you're able to control. And then the love cup, don't forget to fill up your love cup. And only you are the person who knows when it's empty or filled. No one else, your husband, your kids, they won't know. They'll be hopping in and ask another favor to do. And then you will be like, oh my God, I'm empty already. Can you do it yourself? So it's really a matter of, self-awareness and communicating with what you need and what you want.
Thank you. Well, cheers to our love. We're using our love cup. My gosh.
Cheers!
I love it.
Yes.
I love cheers to love cup. Really.
Cheers!
I love that. I love
Love cup is fantastic.
I know. I love that love cup. I mean, thank you guys. Today was so fantastic. And speaking of traveling, I guess, I want to end one last question for everyone. So if you can get on a plane right now, where would you want to go?
Oh, my goosebump is up. That's a fabulous question to end. It's all like, okay, I answer first. I want to actually go to Dubai. Oh, yes. I feel like, Cindy is living in a place where it's like, so golden and full of wealthy people. I don't know. It's an impression, my myth, probably. But yeah, I would love to bring my kids and my family to Dubai.
Come. I'll show you guys
see
around.
all the skyscrapers and all the golden decoration, right?
Cool. Tracy?
Right now, somewhere warm, because Melbourne's getting a little cold for me. Somewhere warm, somewhere with a beach, or and maybe a little in between that, New York.
Very nice. Jana?
Yeah, I was actually thinking the same. I would say New York. or Santorini.
Wow.
It's a little Greece. I never been. I just saw pictures. I love Greece, and it's this white houses, view, ocean view. I would love to go there. And it's warm now. It's Europe. We're heading into summer, so oh my God, I would totally go straight away.
Yeah.
And I also wanted to say thank you so much also from my side. I absolutely love this conversation. I honestly like talking traveling. It would be fantastic to have to continue this talk in real
person.
Melbourne, but from my point of view, it's everywhere but Germany, because I would love to travel. So I would come to Melbourne or Taiwan or Saudi. So, but it'd be fantastic if we can catch up on this. And maybe we did this in another conversation, say in a year, let's see what happened. Like, where are we in a year?
Yes.
You know?
Yeah. I think that would be so cool.
Great idea.
Yeah.
Well, for me, I would love to go to New York just because I haven't seen my parents in over a year and a half.
Oh, so 3 New York.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
That's a dinner party.
There you
Already.
go. There
you
you
have
go.
to switch from Dubai to New York.
Yes, which is easy.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's only 14 hours from Dubai to New York.
Only.
Only 14 hours.
Only.
Yes, exactly. But thank you again, and thank you to all the audiences. I learned a new acronym from the millennials. It's called SLC. It's called subscribe, like, and comment. So please subscribe, please like, and please comment in the comment below. We're gonna have all of the links below of all the Arts Collective from Tracy's side, and then with Lily, I'll share her YouTube channel, which she talks about, relationship, and then some of her stuff that's all gonna be on there. So please, again, SLC, subscribe, like, and comment. So thank you all, and we'll see you very soon for episode 5. Take care. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.